Hey everybody, it's GomletX and welcome back to another premiere draft of The Brothers War. Without further ado, let's just get into it. I think I'm going to take this premium removal spell at uncommon here. Obliterating Bolt is 2 mana to deal 4 to a creature, planeswalker, and exile it if it dies, so it can deal with any pesky Unearth cards very well. And it's just a lot of damage for the cheap entry fee. Nice removal spell, pretty happy to take that. Other nice cards in the pack are Excavation Explosion for another red removal spell, Powerstone Fractures removal in black, and not too much else going on here. Honestly, not a lot of great creatures or anything like that, just some good interaction in the pack. Really don't like this rare though, it's a very temporary removal spell that allows your opponent to recast whatever you target. Alright, pack 1, pick 2. We want to just head deep into a red aggressive strategy. We can pick up a Monastery Swiftspear to go with our Obliterating Bolt to just get a hasty dork that can get some prowess triggers and get some extra damage in there. Seems like a fine place to go for me. Again, not an incredibly exciting pack. There are some other options, but nothing way better than Monastery Swiftspear or anything. There's like a Gaia's Gift here being one of green's best commons because of how flexible of a trick it is. Epic Confrontation as removal. Sibling Rivalry is solid in the Sack and Steal deck, the red-black deck where you steal your opponent's card and start sacrificing them, but it is not that high of a pick because it's not good in every single red deck. Yeah, and then some okay commons like Gigamole, Koilos Rock. We'll just go with the Monastery Swiftspear there. Pack 1, pick 3, some really nice cards in this pack. I was going to say really nice rares and uncommons, but there's some other very good stuff as well. We have Scrapwork Cohort, one of the best common Unearth cards. Just putting a lot of bodies on the board for a cheap cost. Razorlash Transmigrant's a pretty good rare in an aggressive deck. This card can't block, but it can keep coming back from the graveyard late in the game for double black and 4. There's also Ashnod's Harvester, which is a very premium uncommon to me. I think the card is really, really good. Because the thing about it is that it's a strong enough stat line for the mana cost with that ability attached on that you can play it even if you're not in black. You're not going to be massively happy with it, but you won't be that unhappy. And if you do happen to be playing black, then the card is just really, really good if you can get that Unearth value. So I think I'm going to go Ashnod's Harvester here. And it doesn't even necessarily mean we have to be playing black for that card to be good. We can be a mono red aggro deck and still just get a lot of mileage out of a 3 power creature for 2 mana. So like that a lot. And here's another great card. In red, Mishra's Research Desk. This is red's divination, red's card draw engine in the format. It's going to let us draw 2 cards. By exiling the top 2 cards of our library, choosing one that we can play till the end of our next turn, and then unearthing this card later and doing it again. Big fan of the Research Desk, and it's one of the least replaceable cards for the red aggro decks. Blast Runner is pretty sweet as well, but I think I want to take Mishra's Research Desk a little bit higher than Blast Runner. That could be wrong. It all depends on how highly the players in this draft pod will take those 2 cards. Hopefully not too many people going super deep into red, and we can maybe wheel the Blast Runner. Not super likely, though. Alright, now we just have some okay red cards. We have Conscripted Infantry here, and that's about it. I'm not in love with Pyrrhic Blast, a lot of mana for that card. Disfigure, though, is the best card in the pack. It's a really cheap, really efficient removal spell, and we already have kind of 1/2 of a black card right now with the Unearth effect on our 2 mana 3/1, so we can take Disfigure and go a little deeper into the color, following up our Ashnod's Harvester. Best card in this pack to see pick 5, so decent sign for black. Scoop that up. Pack 1, pick 6, these red cards are pretty much unplayable. Fall of Krug, way too much mana. Arb's Race, way too much mana. And Mishra's Domination is really just setting yourself up to get 2 for 1. Killzone Acrobat is good in this color pair specifically because it does work well with the active treason effect, the sibling rivalry to steal your opponent's creature. Trenchstalker is a card I'm a lot more happy with generally because it's not that hard to get a little bit of card draw in your deck. But in black-red, I might go Acrobat over Trenchstalker because we have 0 cards that trigger Trenchstalker right now. And there's a lot of ways the color pair can use an Acrobat. Maybe still supposed to be Trenchstalker, but I'm going to take the Acrobat here. And this will be an easy Goblin Blast Runner. This card synergizes incredibly well with a ton of different stuff. 2 cards that we have already, Mishra's Research Desk and Killzone Acrobat, are perfect with this. If you can have this attacking as a 3/2 menace, even just like once or twice per game, it's a very good deal. And in this format, it's not that difficult to do so. And Pendragon Strongbow, one of the most consistent ways to get your Blast Runners beating face super quickly, so we're very happy to see that. 3 mana, 2/3, you can sacrifice artifacts to give this +1/+1 and deal a damage to each opponent. Great way to use any leftover Power Stones from Excavation Explosions. You can also use that with your Unearth cards because they're going to exile themselves in your end step anyway, and you can use it with artifacts you've stolen from your opponent until end of turn. This pack looks pretty unplayable for just about everybody. Like a really quick blue aggro deck could use cooldown. Raise to the Ground is sort of sideboardy material. It can get main decked, but sometimes you won't have a target, not super often. We did wheel the Sibling Rivalry. Looks like we are in a prime position to just be the Rakdos aggro deck, the red-black aggro strategy with a lot of ways to sacrifice stuff. Bitter Reunion is another card that works very well with the Goblin Blast Runner, because you can sacrifice this permanent to get hasted until end of turn, which will also trigger the Blast Runner for Menace. Rock Hunter is also pretty good. But I think I'm going to go Bitter Reunion over the Rock Hunter. But Flyers are good in this format, so a 2 mana 3/1 is just already a fine aggressive body for a deck as aggressive as this one, and then Reach is a very relevant ability. So I think this is the pack where there was another Blast Runner, so we didn't wheel that one, unfortunately. There's at least one other red player in the draft pod for sure. Just gonna rare draft some nonsense. Fill that vault progress, and see what we open up in pack 2. Pick 1. Well, the strongest card in the pack is definitely Lorn of the Third Path in an artifact enchantment heavy format. This is just a 3 mana 2/1 Vigilance that comes with a removal spell attached, which is obnoxiously good. There's also Caged Sun, which is fun if you're monocolor, but even if we are monocolor, if we're like mono red, that's a very aggressive strategy that isn't going to make the most use out of a 6 mana Anthem effect, because that's going to hit the board very, very late. It also isn't going to work with any of our artifact creatures, and the mana doubling isn't going to matter at all. So it's like feels like a really bad Anthem in our deck, even if we're mono red, to be fair. So I don't think we're taking that. I'm probably just going to take another Pendragon Strongbow. It's just a very good utility piece for these red-black decks, and even just mono red. Another Goblin Blast Runner might be the pickup, but there's also a Scrapwork Mutt. It's actually a very difficult choice. Scrapwork Mutts tend to disappear very quickly for the same reason that I like Ashnod's Harvester, where it's a fine card for a lot of different strategies, even if you're not playing red. Like blue-black draw 2 is very happy to scoop this card up, because you don't really need the Unearth value for just a 2 mana 2/1 with a great Enter the Battlefield effect to be valuable in this format, because it is so important to get cards on the board early. So Scrapwork Mutt is like really, really unlikely to wheel. It's like a 0% chance, but Goblin Blast Runner is still not that likely to wheel since we didn't get the other one to wheel last time. And it is a really powerful card for this strategy. We've got a Research Desk double Strongbow now and a Sibling Rivalry. I'm going to say goodbye to Scrapwork Mutt, and we're going to be Goblin Blast Runners all day. Unleashed Shell looks pretty important here, although there's also a Disfigure for removal. There is a Scrapwork Mutt again, but I only have, what, 2 removal spells? Sibling Rivalry and Obliterating Bolt. I do have a Disfigure. Yeah, maybe I'm okay on removal. I really, really do enjoy Scrapwork Mutt quite a bit as a value play. I think I'm going to roll with it here over Unleashed Shell Disfigure. That could be wrong, but I really don't want to end up in a position where I've passed every Scrapwork Mutt and wheeled 0 of them, because they're a very, very nice card to make your deck just more consistent. Speaking of cards to make the deck more consistent, Evolving Wilds can fix our mana between red and black and trigger our 2 Goblin Blast Runners. So it's actually pretty nice in your decks with Blast Runners in them. So I'm happy to scoop that up. Gigamole would be fine, Skull Flare's fine. Blast Zone sometimes is fine as well. Sometimes your opponent is just beating you down with a bunch of 2-mana cards, so you just set your Blast Zone up to 2 charge counters and then blow them all up. But I think I'd rather just go for Evolving Wilds. More consistent card for sure. Another Pendragon Strongbow seems awesome here. Ashnod's Altar, super cool. Historic Brawl and Commander card. Mishra Tamer of Mak'Va was not very good. It looks really cool. Looks super cool, but the vast majority of the time it's just a 5-mana 4/4. Right? Because pretty much every artifact we're going to be playing in red-black already has Unearth. Most of them for cheaper than 3 mana. And the ward ability doesn't matter that much. So Mishra's been very unimpressive. Much weaker than it looks. Looks like a very cool card, but it just doesn't end up doing much of anything. We are quite heavy into red here, so a Sardian Cliff Stomper could be pretty sweet. Could almost just be mono red splash a tiny bit of black for like 1 Disfigure and an Ashnod's Harvester Unearth effect. We can just cut our Killzone Acrobat because we have 3 Pendragon Strongbowls for sack outlets. Sardian Cliff Stomper seems like a place we can go here. I'm passing up on a 3rd Blast Runner, but pretty excited about that Cliff Stomper here. Sweet option. Elsewhere Flask is another card that can fix us for black mana while also being able to trigger our Goblin Blast Runners. So that seems like a fine pickup. Not overly impressed by Scrapsmith. This is probably the worst of the self-mill cards, because 3 mana for a 3/2 is just really not good. The self-mill cards are like, I want them to be just like decent for their mana cost and be able to just get mana out of the mill. So like Gigamole as a 4-mana 3/4 mill 3, that's fine. The Flyer as a 3-mana 2/2 mill 3, that's also fine. But a 3/2 for 3 real bad in this format. Most everybody's playing 2-power 2-drop creatures all over the place. This pack is not great for us, Evangel of Synthesis being the strongest card. We're not going to play a Clay Revenant. It's a very, very slow card for a very, very fast archetype. Firebomb kind of has the same problem. I could just rare draft a Springleaf Drum because I don't have one yet. Pretty happy to take a Rock Hunter here. I'm trying to take almost exclusively red cards at this point now that we've taken a Cliff Stomper, and we're really not that far from mono red. So Rock Hunter over Thraxodemon here, although they are both actually pretty sweet. Pack 2, pick 10, pretty much nothing for us at this point. I guess I take the Scrapsmith. We could take Supply Drop. It is a fine combat trick that does sacrifice itself later to draw a card, which maybe triggers Blast Runners, but it's a lot of mana investment to get the combat trick plus the card draw out of it, so I'm a super big fan. I'm going to rare draft a Millstone. I'm not going to play a Mishra's Domination. Gixian Skullflayer here. Dredging Claw. Just taking the on-color cards at the end. Ooh, pick 14 Goblin Blast Runner. We are in the deck to be in at this draft pod. That is very lucky, and we're more than happy to splash in an Overwhelming Remorse, even if I'm trying to play very heavy into red, because it's the only remotely playable card in red or black. Actually, Carrion Locust is a card I'm a decent fan of. I like flyers in the format, and shutting off Unearth is good, but Overwhelming Remorse is far better than Locust. Just a really good, really cheap removal spell that also exiles, so we'll definitely splash that in, and there was nothing in red there. Another great removal spell here, Obliterating Bolt. It's Obliterating Bolt versus a second Overwhelming Remorse. I think I'd rather take the Obliterating Bolt, keep black to a splash as much as possible. This is also cheaper removal, and now we can just play this turn 2, turn 3, and be really happy with it. Overwhelming Remorse actually often does end up being close to as cheap as Obliterating Bolt at least, but I think more removal in red seems a little better to me. Both excellent, excellent options though. Definitely the best 2 cards in the pack. So lucky to get that stuff for our pack 3 pick 2, but I'm gonna go for another Obliterating Bolt over another Overwhelming Remorse. What's our creature count looking like? 14? Yeah, we're doing great. Only need like 1 or 2 more creatures. Ideally, we can pick up 3 or 4 more creatures so that I can cut these black ones out of the deck, like the Skullflayer and the Acrobat. Mazemind Tome is A very, very good card. It's kind of weird in an aggressive red strategy, but honestly, the only card we'd play in an aggressive red strategy here is like Raise to the Ground. That's the only thing we're missing. Or just a solid black card like Emergency Weld. I'm going to take Maze Mind Tome. This card can potentially draw you 4 cards throughout the game, and if you're getting beaten down and you can't do that, you can just tap it to scry one to get the charge counters on it, to where it'll exile itself sooner, and you can get that life gain as well as that bit of card advantage that it gave you. Maze Mind Tome's just a sweet, sweet, sweet magic card. Again, a little weird in like a dedicated aggressive strategy, but it's so good for any just like regular mid-rangey draft deck. Super happy to have another Ashnod's Harvester here. Definitely will take that over the Dwarven Forge Chanter, and not much else. Infiltrator actually kind of sweet for red-black sacrifice, but trying to keep black super, super low here. Probably our black cards tend up just being our Unearth cards and our removal, and that's it, ideally. That way I can just play like maybe even one swamp. One swamp and Elsewhere Flask. Maybe we can get a Chromatic Star or something. Just make our Cliff Stomper an absolute menace. Got another Bitter Reunion here. And that's about it. Trench Stalker Bitter Reunion. Bitter Reunion it is. Unfortunately, getting past like 0 red creatures, pack 3. It's the only thing we really need. I guess I'm going to have to play this Chain Dancer. So we want to get that creature count up to at least like 15, ideally. I'd rather play another Chain Dancer or another Scrapsmith. I'm not in love with either. I'm going to take a look at the curve real quick. We've got 4 3-mana creatures. I guess I take another 4-mana creature. Yeah, another Chain Dancer, I suppose. Well, pretty much mono red, so Mechanized Warfare does add a damage to everything that we're doing. I guess we scoop that up. Like, I don't actually know if it's the right pick over just another really solid creature. It still doesn't seem like incredible, but definitely the only deck that I've drafted in quite some time that could actually make use of the card, so let's play around with it, try it out. Take a Scrapwork Cohort here. We get to cut a lot of non-creature cards out of this deck. Sitting at 16 creatures now, we might just run a Cohort. Another Chain Dancer or another Scrapsmith, don't love either. I think they're just immediately going to get cut. Yeah, I'm just going to cut either of these, so I'm just going to throw a Demolition Field in the sideboard as another rare draft, and we'll do another rare draft here, taking the highest rarity cards to fuel that vault progress. I might actually play a Dwarven Forge Chanter. Depends how the curve is looking. Yeah, worst case scenario. Ooh, last pick Thraxodemon. Worst case scenario here, if we need to improve the creature base, we can just run an actual just red-black deck and run a few of those black creatures. Let our Cliff Stomper be a little bit weaker or even cut it. Because we can throw in a Thraxodemon, Skullflayer, and Acrobat, and those are actually pretty solid. They're probably better than like the Scrapsmith and Chain Dancers in here. But then we kind of have to cut Mechanized Warfare as well. Okay, so we're cutting 7 cards out of this deck. Wow, it wants 6 swamps. That is a whole lot for 2 black cards. Let's see. So we have Overwhelming Remorse, 2 Obliterating Bolt, and Disfigure. 4 removal spells already, plus Sibling Rivalry for artifact creatures makes 5, because we can kill artifact creatures by stealing and sacrificing them to our Strongbow. So I think Raise to the Ground is just kind of a worse Sibling Rivalry in our deck. The majority of cards we're going to want to blow up with this are just going to be artifact creatures, which Strongbow can blow up with a Sibling Rivalry. And we've got a lot of unconditional removal that can kill any kind of creature. Creature count is 17, so I do kind of have to remove almost exclusively non-creatures. I could cut this Cohort. I'm not going to put a plains in for it. I would just have it in here as 4 mana for a 3/1 and a 1/1, which isn't horrible. But it's probably around the least exciting card in the deck. Maybe tied for Dwarven Forge Chanter on that front. Or one of the Chain Dancers, but the Chain Dancers are a pretty cute synergy with Mechanized Warfare. So if you give a double striker the ability to do an extra damage, it's going to do 2 extra damage. Instead of doing 4 damage off of a double strike swing, it'll do 6. Yeah, Mazemind Tome might be just awkwardly slow for the deck, which is really sad to say, because it's a very strong card. 15 creatures is still pretty reasonable if we cut these two. And if I do... Oh, I'd still have to cut all 4 of these. Wow. We're almost definitely cutting at least 1 land, though. So then I could only cut 3 of these. We have 3 cards with Unearth to work with Bitter Reunion, plus it works with our 3 Goblin Blast Runners, so it's probably just genuinely better than Mazemind Tome in this deck. I don't want to cut below 15 creatures. Would I be okay cutting to 15 lands? Average mana cost is 2.3. 15 lands instead of 17 makes it so your average opener, instead of having like 3 lands on average, it has like 2.5 on average. Something like that. I don't know exact math on that. But it doesn't like drop it so significantly that your average opener has only 2 lands. It's like right in the middle between 2 and 3. Got a lot of 1-drops and 2-drops. Could be greedy here, but I think I'm going to cut down to 15 lands. Try to get a lot of mileage out of our card draw like Bitter Reunions to help get there. If I'm cutting down to 15 lands, it's so much harder to dump extra mana into a Mazemind Tome. Yeah, I really, really, really like Mazemind Tome, but it just really feels like it's not for this deck. I've just cut down on multiple lands, which is going to mean that having extra mana left over to be able to dump into the Mazemind Tome is going to be pretty difficult, and this is by far at its best in decks that can spend mana on it as efficiently as possible, which is not something that this deck can do because we have to just keep curving out with creatures and removal spells and keeping the pressure on our opponent. This is the kind of card that's going to come down like turn 6 for us after everything we've done and then try to slowly but surely refuel us, which I think just like Bitter Reunion, Elsewhere Flask are just better at because they just do it a little faster for a little cheaper. I'm going to drop Mazemind Tome, awkwardly enough. It's like my favorite card in the whole deck, but not because it works in this deck. It's because I just like it as a card for other strategies. For, you know, any mid-range deck that's not this dedicated to beating down. So, sad news for Mazemind Tome, but we're going to cut that. And again, we only have 2 removal spells in black. And we've got a Cliff Stomper. I kind of want to drop down to like 2 Swamps, Elsewhere Flask, Evolving Wilds, but that might be a little greedy as well. But let's just go all in on Greed is good today. 15 lands, only 2 swamps. Let's call it a deck. Alright, here's a look at the completed deck we'll be playing with today. This is very close to a mono-red aggro deck, but it's got a little bit of some greed pile stuff going on here. So we've got the very good mono-red curve of 3 Blast Runners and Monastery Swiftspear at 1 mana to just get beating down. Plenty of ways to sacrifice stuff to trigger the Blast Runners. We've got Mishra's Research Desk, a couple Bitter Reunions, an Elsewhere Flask, a few Strong Bowls, Sibling Rivalry to use with these Strong Bowls. So a few good ways to sacrifice stuff with the Blast Runners. There's, at 2 mana, some Ashnod's Harvesters, Scrapwork Mutt, Rock Hunter, and Sardian Cliff Stomper, so another just laundry list of the best aggressive 2-drops. And at 3 mana, we've got that triple Strongbow. Scrapsmith, not the greatest, but we need to keep that creature count high. And at the top end of the curve, just a couple Chain Dancers, also not that exciting. But we've got the really good non-creature spells to go with our aggressive curve of creatures. We've got 2 Obliterating Bolts, a Sibling Rivalry. We've got a Mechanized Warfare to add to the damage output that we have, and some good card draw between a couple Bitter Unions, Mishra's Research Desk, Elsewhere Flask, and the greedy aspect of the deck is that not only are we running only 15 lands, we're also running only 2 swamps for our splash of Disfigure, Overwhelming Remorse, and a couple Ashnod's Harvester's Unearth abilities. So the way we get our black source is, of course, 2 swamps, an Evolving Wilds, and an Elsewhere Flask. So hopefully that's enough for us to have these black removal spells when we need them. But other than that, pretty straightforward. Mono red aggro, we are just beating our opponents down super quickly. So it should be a pretty quick draft in terms of the gameplay section, no matter what happens from here. Alright, our opponent is on the play, but we've got an excellent opening hand. We have a Sardian Cliff Stomper at the ready. Scrapwork Mutt as well. We do not like to see a Blanchwood Prowler from our opponent because a Scrapwork Mutt cannot attack into that well. It'll just trade with the 1/1 body. Mishra's Research Desk is the draw. I do really need to hit a few more lands here, so I could be interested in playing that. I could also Bitter Union discarding that. And then I can still unearth it for a little bit of value later. Maybe even discarding the Mutt because of their 1/1 body would be fine. I think I'm going to go Reunion here. I'm going to get super greedy and keep all the card draw. And there we go. There's our land for next turn. Beautiful. Just trying to guarantee again that we'll have 4 lands out on turn 4 for our Sardian Cliff Stomper. And there's the 4th land. So we've got it at the ready. So I can Cliff Stomper this turn, and I know I can attack with it as a massive creature next turn. I can also get the initial investment out of the way with Mishra's Research Desk, so that I'm using all of my mana this turn. Playing against green-black here, and they're going to send in with everybody. Maybe have a Moment of Defiance or something? I guess they just wanted to get 1 damage in and we gave them 3. It's not great for us. Well, Sibling Rivalry can steal the Rager. It's not going to be that valuable. I could Obliterating Bolt the Rager, which is fine, and play an Ashnod's Harvester for the turn. That seems pretty fine to me. Don't really want them to chump block and be able to get Unearth value off of it later. So life totals have evened out after just 1 swing from Cliff Stomper. That kind of makes up for the no block last turn. Send in just the Blanchwood Prowler, will take 1 damage. Goring Warplow. Well, there's a Sibling Rivalry target if I've ever seen one. Well, never mind. If they have Epic Confrontation as well, then the 1/1 body doesn't really matter. Send in the Harvester, exile this Boulder Branch Golem that they milled earlier. Trade with whatever they want. Alright, we are going to trade into the Goring Warplow. Get a Penrugan Strongbow down. Could use the Mishra's Research Desk during their end step to make the most of all of my mana. But then whatever I exile from it, I'd have to play by the end of next turn. Ooh. Mishra's research desk to work towards guaranteeing a 5th land here actually seems very viable when my opponent drops Iron Claw Crusher, an incredible artifact to sacrifice. So I'm actually going to sack the desk looking for another land. We found one, a Swamp. Obliterating Bolt. Really sad to pass up on that. But I think this land is quite important. I'm going to take the Swamp here. Guarantee the land for turn. And good thing we did, we wouldn't have had the land otherwise. Now we get to steal the Crusher. And it'll be a very bad time for our opponent. Alright, nice little chump block in there. They'll take 2. And then 1 more damage when we sacrifice their Crusher. Of course, now we have that Powerstone left behind. That's going to help us use all these Unearth abilities. But now we are going to have to deal with a 5/4 Goring Warplow somehow. Alright, Thraxer Demon's going to cycle away their 1/1 to draw a card. They're going to play an Ashnod's Harvester. And hold on to the Warplow. A couple Blast Runners are pretty sweet here. Bitter Reunion could even get close to finding lethal out of nowhere. Do I just do that? Bitter Reunion here. That seems very spicy to me. I don't know how much damage this is, but it's a good amount. It's 9 damage minimum. 10 damage here. I sack the Powerstone. I think I'm just going to do 9 here. The Powerstone could help me reanimate more cards next turn. Right, because they can only harvester away 1 of the cards in our grave. So they can't stop us from getting a lot of Unearth action going on next turn. And by leaving this Powerstone on board, I have a guaranteed way to get both of these Blast Runners to have Menace, which is pretty important for our follow-up attack. Although I guess I could always just unearth the research desk and crack it. This is more expensive though. Alright, final draw for our opponent. It's gonna be enough. It is not gonna be enough to save them from all of the damage on our board stay with those menacing Blast Runners, so it is gonna be 1-0 to start it off. Alright, here we are on the play for game 2. None of our 1 or 2 mana cards. Very sad. Oh, we have a research desk, but none of our 1 or 2 mana creatures. Definitely still a keep though, the mana is pretty great. Drop the desk past the turn. Nothing super great to reunion here. I just grab a mountain and pass. Only 1 card in the deck that I couldn't cast next turn off Research Desk, and that's a Chain Dancer, which is like, alright, fine, so I'm gonna sack it here. Oh, I guess there's an Overwhelming Remorse. There's 2 cards. Chain Dancer, Overwhelming Remorse. Swifter is actually kind of awkward here, but I don't want the 4th land that badly, just for a Just for a Chain Dancer. Guess I could bolt the Sprite and get in. I feel like there's going to be better stuff to bolt later though, so I'm just going to discard Chain Dancer. Or even Scrapsmith. Probably Scrapsmith. I'm not in love with either of those cards. Alright, jam in for 2. Opponent is on mono green so far, but they do get the turn 3 Argothian Opportunist, setting them far ahead in mana. They have ways to use the Powerstone mana like artifacts and activated abilities. 4 mana to play around with. No instance in the hand. Could drop a Chain Dancer, could drop a Strong Bowl, could Research Desk and crack it. We just drop a Chain Dancer and pass. Don't know my opponent well enough to know if I should just attack with the Swift Spear and hope that they don't take the bait, because that's very dependent on how your opponent plays. You can do that a lot more with players that you know well. With just randoms on the internet, it's a very risky play to attack him with the 4 untapped mana. Because, you know, I probably wouldn't block, because if my opponent attacks him with a Swift Spear with 4 open mana into my Opportunist, I'm like, well, if they have Disfigure, they can kill Sprite and Opportunist off this block. But a lot of different players are like, well, you gotta just make them have it. If they don't have it, the block's gonna work really well for you. So, really have no way to know for sure. Alright. Well, Epic Confrontation was pretty annoying there. I'm just on green-red here. After just obliterating bolt this Opportunist at this point? That feels super bad. That does get them to a point where they can't really attack us anymore. Not until they have the 7 mana to buff the Sprite. And they only have 5 right now. And I believe they missed a land drop, I could be wrong. Maybe this game has just been playing out a lot faster than I thought. And this is still their turn 4. Which it probably is. But again, if they want to buff the Sprite, then they're going to have to spend their whole turn doing it once they get 2 more lands. Because it is 7 mana to do so. So Gaia's Gift, Whirling Blades, lots of different tricks that could go really poorly for me here. They'd all still be 1-for-1s, and it would soak up half of their mana, so they wouldn't be able to play another creature this turn. Yeah, I mean, if they Gaia's Gift me, or if they Whirling Blades me, that's half their mana, or Whirling Strike is what it's called. And it prevents them from playing another big card this turn. So they don't get to put anything else on board. They just trade 1 card in hand for my 1 card on board. A Reunion or Research Desk here? I think I'm gonna Reunion. Just Reunion can trigger the Swift Spear prowess, but Research Desk wouldn't, because it would just be putting it from the grave onto the battlefield. Another Strong Bowl. Alright. They're 1 mana away from enough to buff the Sprite. Could just bolt it right now. I'd rather just Strong Bowl. And then if they play a land to where they can buff the Sprite, then I'll just not block. Because again, if they want to spend their whole turn just putting 2 counters on Sprite, that's fine with me. But not if it kills one of my cards. Steel Exemplar, alright. This is going to be a nasty sibling rivalry. Yep, I appreciate that, that steel exemplar there. It's going to be very enjoyable. Alright, they're down to 3 now. We're at 9. Burnished Heart is the play. Just a 2-2, no haste or anything, so we're looking pretty fine. There's a Sardian Cliff Stomper as the draw. Well, that's a sweet one. Let's go ahead and exile the Argothian Sprite now. Buff the Swift Spear to where they can't block it and kill it, and they're just going to scoop them up there. Because one removal spell lets us hit in for 2 with either of these creatures and then sack our Powerstone to the Strongbow to finish them off. So I'm guessing that meant nothing left in their hand, no interaction there. So 2-0 it is as we head into Game 3. Here we are in Game 3 with a very solid creature curve. There's no interaction, no non-creature spells whatsoever to go with it, which is the awkward part of this hand, but the hands can't always be perfect. We'll just roll with it here. Trading some damage early on. Elsewhere Flask is a solid draw, because that can give us our black mana if we need it. When we need it. I'd rather play that to Bitter Reunion. I think for now I would, although I could just discard Scrapsmith to Reunion, because the card is not very good, but probably better to just straight draw a card than discard draw currently. Ooh, a Blast Runner. Another great way to use the Flask. I think we're racing for now. Opponent is going to be a little bit ahead in the race because they did get a 2 damage swing off. But as soon as we drop a 2-3, they can't hit us with the Officer anymore. And go back to the lead. Disfigure is spicy. Because I can disfigure that Recruitment Officer off the Elsewhere Flask. Ideally, I'd want to wait until I have a Blast Runner down to do that, so I might want to play really weird here. I think I actually do want to make a very strange turn and go for Bitter Reunion. Maybe even discard Chain Dancer, but I still think I'm just not into Scrapsmith. And then we're going to play a Blast Runner this turn. And then we have an explosive turn next turn. Especially since I drew another Blast Runner. So now next turn, I get to play a Blast Runner, sack a Reunion to give everything haste, and these both menace. And then sack an Elsewhere Flask, disfigure. And that will also trigger Swift Spear's Prowess. Just get a lot of damage in next turn. What? I guess there's not any better targets right now, but I'll take it. I guess we're not doing the Bitter Reunion part anymore, but we can still have a pretty great attack this turn. If we're not doing the Bitter Reunion, then we'll just play Strongbow Disfigure. That is A-okay with me. See what they have for 2 mana. It is not a Gaia's Gift. They're just going to take 5. So no Gaia's Gift, no Deadly Riposte. Gaia's Gift would have given their creature hexproof and a +1/+1 counter my Disfigure, and Deadly Post would have dealt 3 to a tapped creature and gained them a couple life. So we can narrow out those as potential plays. Aeronaut Cavalry, it's a little annoying. Drawing an Evolving Wilds is beautiful here. Although I do have the Bitter Reunion, I can just use that instead. It's also pretty good because it means I get to attack with this Blast Runner. This actually might be a little greedy, but I'm discarding the Evolving Wilds. Worked out fine. Sure, they get to kill my Strongbow, but they take 8. Sacking the Strongbow to get 2 more damage in to make it really, really unlikely that my opponent can survive this turn. Yeah, they're just going to scoop them up. I actually think... I wasn't thinking super clearly on the discard of Evolving Wilds. I was thinking of it as this is my black source. So it's greedy to discard this because this is my black source. I think if it was just my black source, it would have been correct to discard it to the Bitter Reunion, but I realized as soon as I went through with the full attack, it's also my sacrifice outlet to make sure that my creatures had Menace next turn, so I really should have just discarded the Chain Dancer, because Evolving Wild's ability to guarantee that the Blast Runners would have Menace on that future turn was actually pretty viable, very relevant, so... Little misplay there, but opponent was just really stuck there. They just had 2 creatures to cast all game. Not a great opening hand for them, so the aggro deck just gonna eat them up, and we're heading into game 4 now. At least a 50-50 run, even if we lose every game from this point on. Alright, here we are on the play for game 4. Definitely keeping this hand. We have aggressive 1-drops to play like Swift Spear, which is what I'm going to roll out with, because the turn that we play Blast Runner, we're probably cracking a Bitter Reunion for it. So we're going to go Swift Spear into Harvester. Have a Reunion up later. Very aggressive start. Opponent starts things off with a Goring Warplow. A 1-for-1 trade of any of these cards into the Warplow seems very okay to me. Probably Bitter Reunion discarding Scrapwork Mutt. It can give us some Unearth value later anyway. Do this pre-combat so we can get that Prowess trigger. Ooh, Obliterating Bolts for their next play. Sure seems pretty good. Oh my god, I forgot that Harvester exiles our own graveyard. That's fine. I guess we should have discarded Overwhelming Remorse. Or, you know what, I should have just given up on the 1 damage. The 1 point of damage was not worth exiling our own card. I should have post-combated the Bitter Reunion. That's so funny, the double-edged blade that is the Harvester's Exile ability. Modern Magic design is super weird. The vast majority of the time nowadays they make these things where they have no drawback, or it's always like up to 1 card from a graveyard. So whenever it's not designed that way, it just really takes you for a whirl. You're like, whoa, wait, what? I am not in love with bolting that. But it does let us hit for 6. Yeah, we'll just go for a hit for 6. Oh, they probably have Disfigure here. Disfigure the Blast Runner, I guess. They are going to disfigure the Harvester. Overwhelming Remorse will be castable next turn now. I hold on to Reunion, then if I hit a land, I go Strongbow, give it haste, Reunion to have a runner still hitting for a bunch. Save it for now. Stone retrieval unit. Big chunky 2/3 to get in the way. Sardian Cliff Stomper. Well, I don't have enough mountains for you, friend. Do not have enough mountains for you. Just give up on an attack this turn. Or do I Cliff Stomper and get a Menace attack in with Blast Runner? I'm just gonna give up on an attack for this turn. It still doesn't feel great to just cash in a Reunion for like 3 damage. And a Cliff Stomper is not really doing anything on this board because we're not worried about blocking at all. Alright, there's an Obliterating Bolt for that Recluse, which lets us leave Overwhelming Remorse for something else. Feels pretty nice. Still not in love with cashing in Reunion for 3 damage. But I do have a second copy. I'm just gonna pass again. Alright, that is going to get remorsed. Unless I draw a sibling rivalry, then I'm going to try to wait. Oh, it's going to get remorsed. Pass turn, hope they are out of stuff, and if they are, then we can get some big attacks going. Alright, here we go. Now, we're just getting in there. Oh, I don't have the mana to play Scrapsmith and crack the Reunion anyway. I was going to say I could Scrapsmith Reunion because Scrapsmith is going to be a 3/2, which is big enough to attack in decently against the retrieval unit. But I don't have the mana to play it and sack a thing. Probably going to Reunion away this Scrapsmith. And then play a Cliff Stomper here. Ooh, a Research Desk. Beautiful. But I'm just going to play Cliff Stomper. And then next turn, we attack for a bajillion damage. When we are getting some massive benefits from running a 15 land deck here. The opponent is flooding out hard. Right. There's the land for Cliff Stomper. Here's a Research Desk to trigger the Blast Runners. Ooh, here's our Mechanized Warfare. Additional damage from everybody, and that is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 damage. Put them to 3 life and pass turn. Just another land for our opponent. Wow, really flooded in the end. Atomical Honor Guard is the only play. We are well over lethal on board, so we'll just crack back there. And that is going to be 4-0 for our... Oh, my brain stopped working. Ugh. I'm ready to take a nap after this. Here we are now in game 5. We are undefeated so far, 4-0. We are guaranteed to be pretty much breaking even. Everything else from now on is just for the gravy. See if we can get in the money here. And leave with more gems than we entered with. Very nice opening hand here. We don't have a natural black source, but we do have an elsewhere flask to assist us. We have an Ashnod's Harvester here. I do need to keep that in mind. Ashnod's Harvester, Bitter Reunion. If I discard an Unearth card to the Reunion and then attack with Harvester, I will have to exile it if there's nothing else in the graveyard. Made that misplay earlier today. Another Bitter Reunion. So we use that post-combat when we have a Harvester on board. We're pretty fine to just take this trade. Trade our 3-1 that can unearth for theirs that can't. Alright, and they're happy to take the trade as well because they are green-black, which means they probably have some graveyard synergies that the Harvester could annoy them out of. So we'll make the most of our 3 mana and cast our 3 mana creature, get a Penrigan Strongbow down, and they're going to drop a Carrion Locust. Well, another reason they'd be perfectly happy to trade with an Unearth card, but hey, there's another Harvester. Sure seems fine by me. Seems like our best play here. Also just Reunion, discarding a Reunion or something weird like that, but let's get the Harvester down. Ashnod's Harvester of their own. Anatomical Honor Guard. They're curving out more than we are. That's not appreciated. There's an Evolving Wilds to get a natural black source for this Overwhelming Remorse in the future. I still have the Elsewhere Flask though. I'm almost willing to just Bitter Reunion away Evolving Wilds. That leaves me very low on mana though. Probably just have to make blocks on the defensive. I'm not liking this position. Yeah, I'm gonna drop an Elsewhere Flask and probably just play an Evolving Wilds. Elsewhere Flask gives me... ooh. Maybe I don't play Evolving Wilds. I was gonna say Elsewhere Flask gives me an artifact to sacrifice to Strongbolt to block with a 3/4 if they try to send in their 3/1s. I guess for that reason I should probably go Evolving Wilds here. That way I'm holding up the 1 mana for Strongbolt. So they trade into Honor Guard, and then they attack in with Harvester to exile our Harvester, and we kill their Harvester with our Strongbolt. Pretty much balances out. Right, we take a 1-for-1 trade here, but then we kill the Harvester for free. Not for free. We kill the Harvester at the cost of losing our Unearth effect. Ooh, this is very weird. I suppose this does work better in their favor because now essentially we're trading our full Harvester for their full Harvester, but they get to do 3 damage to us in the process. Unless I block with Strongbow and lose my Elsewhere Flask. This is weird. This must be a combat trick of some kind. Let's see. See what they have here, because we're not really losing much. The only thing Elsewhere Flask was giving us at this point, because we have Evolving Wilds, was another sacrifice ability. Yeah, okay, so we'll trade Giant Growth for Strongbow. That's perfectly fair. Elsewhere Flask already gave us its value. We didn't need it on board at all at that point, because we already have the black source and we already have 2 other ways to sacrifice cards if we draw into a Blast Runner. Alright, so they're down to 2 cards we need to deal with. And we have an Overwhelming Remorse, and we have Bitter Reunions to get us some card draw. Because of an aeronaut's wings, it's probably better to exile the larger creature. Because they can just put the wings onto this and hit us for 4 with that one. Takes 6 damage if I don't Overwhelming Remorse this turn. I guess I can't even Overwhelming Remorse that because it's Ward 2. So I could Remorse the Locust or take 6 and just Reunion for the turn. That's rough. Let's see what we can draw into here. More mana. Can play a Scrapsmith, but that won't block because of their Aeronaut's wings. I think I Reunion again. And in case I draw Disfigure, I Reunion like this. Draw Blast Runner instead. Awkward. It's not looking great for us. Five mana 4/4 says what's up. And we'll take 5. This is a lot of lands, unfortunately. Need to mill a creature to this Scrapsmith here, ideally. Did mill a creature. Even if I put Mutt in my hand, I've milled a creature. If I play Mutt, discard Runner, Remorse still costs too much mana. Alright, well, we are just dead here because of the Aeronaut's wings. Just put it on the Honor Guard. If they put it on Exemplar, I'm super happy. Nope, they put it on Honor Guard, so we go to 1, and then we just don't have enough ways to deal with the flyers. There's one flying blocker. If I can draw into Disfigure, I'm still alive. I only have one more way to attempt to draw a card. Disfigure or one of our 2 Obliterating Bolts gets us there. And that is none of those. Yep, well, we're dead. Unfortunate stuff, this game. Not draw enough removal for the flyers. And the draw distribution was kind of poor for us. Hit a lot of lands early in the game. Four and 1 it'll be. Here we are now in game 6, a definite keeper. Blast Runner into Harvester, into just dropping Evolving Wilds turn 3. We've got multiple Harvesters as well. This is going to be potentially a nasty hand here, depending on how good our opponent's early game is. Carrying Locust from our opponents. They don't get to exile anything with that. Sure, I'll exile my Evolving Wilds from my graveyard. To get the Blast Runner attacking as a 3/2 menace instead of a 1/2. Maybe they have another Carrion Locust to play here. Thraxo Demon. And Bushwhack to fight my Goblin Blast Runner. Sad day. Sad day indeed. I'd like to get a Strongbow out before I unearth any harvesters here, so we'll just send this attack in. They will take the trade. Hopefully they don't have anything weird to like exile my whole grave or something like that. I'm gonna dump mana into giving Chain Dancer double strike? No. Highly doubt that, so I'm just gonna play Strongbow. Gix's Caress. Okay, my Overwhelming Remorse is gone, I guess. Oh, this is pretty fine. Caress into the empty board. Ooh. Mechanized Warfare now? I think I'd rather Elsewhere Flask. And that's why, because I knew there was a mountain on top. I actually... I've got cheats on. I've got wall hacks for the top of my deck. Ramos. Alright, well... That's spooky, but because of Mechanized Warfare, anything... If they block anything, then that Ramos will die. If they don't block anything, then they will die. Not quite, but definitely next turn. Oh, I should have Elsewhere Flasked for black mana and brought the other Harvester back. That was a miss. Yeah, I was thinking about sacking the Flask to the Strongbow. I completely forgot about the ability to get the right mana out of it. Now I could sack both of these. 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess I could have put them to 1 if I sacked Elsewhere Flask during combat there, and then sacked Harvester now. We're definitely sacking Harvester because it's unearthed. Yeah, I'm probably not going to need another black mana. Let's just shoot them again. They're at 2 life. If they don't have like a Boulder Branch Golem, we probably got this. I think I could have found lethal. I don't think that the math adds up to where I had lethal last turn. I think it's that I put them to 1 because I would have had to have sacked the Harvester. Ooh, that's a draw. Well, that's the most annoying or obnoxious way we could have ended that game. I feel kind of bad for our opponent there. Yeah, I don't think we had lethal during combat there, but if I played out the turn better earlier, we could have had lethal if they didn't block with Ramos. Because I could have sacked the Flask to get the other Harvester back and played the, Research Desk pre-combat, so then I'd have multiple artifacts to choose from to sack, and I'd be attacking with 3 creatures that all deal, like 4 damage apiece. So, could have played that out better, but we'll still get there. 5-1 as we head into Game 7. Alright, here we go. We are 5-1 now, and I am going to keep this hand. Another hand with a great 1-drop into multiple options at 2 mana. That is where we want to be in this deck. We've got a lot of 1s and 2s, and we are happy to curve out with them. Another green-black deck. It's just going to be all green-black decks all day. That's a very good Fauna Shaman. Would love to have the black source to blow it up immediately, but since we don't, we will just keep playing our creatures out aggressively. Go Harvester here. Fauna Shaman's a valuable enough card, but I think it would have been okay to just attack with Swift Spear. Then they probably wouldn't block, but again, I hate trying to make those kind of plays against just randoms. Just online where you can't even read like their body language or anything. Alright, we'll take it. Rock Hunter Blast Runner. Energy Refractor from our opponent. They are a very multicolored pile. Green, black, and white. Energy Refractor for some fixing. Scrapwork Mutt. That is a very good draw for us because we need to find a black source. This game, that is not one of them. I haven't found anything to sacrifice either, or any non-creatures to play for Swift Spear. Oh my god, double opportunist here. They're gonna have 2 Power Stones lying around with an Energy Refractor to spend them on. We're drawing our stupid Chain Dancer. I wish we had better creatures than this Chain Dancer. This card's been so bad every time we've drawn it. Just a abysmally poor card. Well, at least Scrapwork Mud is really good. I'm just gonna trade into an Opportunist. At least we're getting those things out of the way. Now we'll drop a Strongbow, and next turn we can reanimate the Mutt, discard the Chain Dancer to draw a card, and sacrifice it even to get an extra point of damage in with Strongbow. Hero of the Dunes, another very, very powerful magic card from our opponent. 5 mana 3/2 that returns something from their grave and gives all their board +1/+0. No! The worst card in our deck is back! Alright. I've drawn both copies of it. Incredibly not what I want to see. Get out of here, Chain Dancer. Well, better than Chain Dancer. To hit for 2 with this because they're not going to want to make any trades. Can't really afford to send Strongbow in. If I sack the Mutt to give this Menace. Sack the Mutt to give Runner Menace. I can double block to kill it. Actually more damage to sack the Mutt than it is to let the Mutt in. But then I do make a 1-for-1 trade, but it's into a hero or a Fauna Shaman. So it's into a valuable creature. Cool, so this way I hit for 4 instead of 3, so it's a little bit of a better attack. And then obviously if they make a block there, I get to choose a good creature to kill. And they were never going to block if it was just the Unearth card coming in. Unfortunately, Fauna Shaman's going to 100% win this game for our opponents, because we just haven't drawn our source for this figure. Yep, because you can just discard some random 2-mana drop and pick up the strongest mythic rare in your deck, which lets you draw an extra card each turn, create a bunch of tokens, unearth it if I ever kill it. Fauna Shaman, a card you need to kill pretty much immediately, and we couldn't, so that's game. Platoon Dispenser going to steal it from us. Yep, moving on. Here we are in game 8. Unfortunately, an unkeepable hand. It's got that Blast Runner turn 1, but we got a mulligan that. This is definitely a bit better. I don't know if it's actually better to... oh, I know what I'm dumping. Get out of here, Chain Dancer. I don't know if it's actually better to Blast Runner turn 1 into Evolving Wilds turn 2, or just Evolving Wilds turn 1 into Harvester turn 2. I'll get a little greedy here and go for the big Blast Runner attack turn 2. This way, if we draw land as well, our turn 3 attack is really good. gonna grab the swamp here, because if we hit another land, it's infinitely more likely that it's gonna be a mountain than a swamp. There's only one swamp left in the deck now. Alright, there we go. We hit the Mechanized Warfare mana. It's actually more damage output to get Harvester out first, and then work towards the Mechanized Warfare. Because currently this adds just 1 extra damage per turn. Once we have 2 creatures, it's adding 2 extra damage per turn. Alright, we've got a bunch of removal here. We'll just drop a Warfare for now. We could have an Ambush Paratrooper to kill our Harvester, I suppose. Or Riposte, that works too. But we can just Unearth it. Still fine. Yoshin Dissident. Do they have a follow-up play to put more than 1 counter onto it? Or do I get to disfigure it? Oh, that puts 1 counter on it, so disfigure will be a viable option, so I can disfigure that and drop a Bitter Reunion. Hold on to Obliterating Bolt. There's the 4th land for the Chain Dancer. And 2 damage from Goblin Blast Runner. Rust Goliath. Oh, Obliterating Bolt is 1 damage off, but Mechanized Warfare does make it enough, actually. Ooh, drawing Goblin Blast Runner also beautiful. I guess I don't even have to kill it because these are both going to have Menace, but still seems valuable. We're going to hit for 8 here. They're down to 6. Here's an Argothian Opportunist. Those will 1-for-1 trade into the Blast Runners as long as we have Warfare on board. Looks like nothing else to do with their mana here, so might as well put a Wings onto it. No, Epic Confrontation it is. Kill one of the Blast Runners here. Another Blast Runner. Blasting all day. If I Harvester here, I can Harvester and play a Blast Runner. Right, and then they'll take the trade there and take 4, be it 2 life. And I'll have a runner down if I draw any way to sack something. It feels like it might be better than just playing Chain Dancer. Oh, it's definitely better if we can get them to trade into the Harvester. Alright, they don't trade into the Harvester, so they're going to go to 2, and here's a Blast Runner, which does attack for lethal. If we can get it in. And they don't have another creature to play, so we can get that Blast Runner in for the last 2 damage, and that is going to be 6 and 2 now. We're heading into the final boss. Win or lose the final game of Magic for the day. See how it all comes down. Here we are for the final game of Magic for the day, no matter what. Could be the 7-win run, could be a 6 and 3, so close. This hand is very awkward. We're not going to start till turn 3, but we do have interaction, but we've got a black card with no black source. We've got the worst card in our deck with a Chain Dancer. I'm tempted to mulligan here, but our opponent is on the play. Vast majority of our deck, there's only 1 other black card in the deck, so most of our draws we can cast. There's only 1 other 4-mana card in the deck. Yeah, most of our draws are good. Mishra's research desk definitely on the list of good draws. Opponent is starting off mono black so far. Then a Thraxidemon turn 2. Excuse me, and a Mishra's Bauble, so they get to see what's on top of our library. But they are not going to crack it yet, they're going to keep it around. Nothing to play this turn, I'm not going to bolt the Thraxidemon, so let's see what we've got from the research desk. Why? so they get to see the 2 cards that we're going to exile 1 millisecond before we exile them. Okay. So it doesn't exile face down or anything. That was a little bit weird timing on the Mishra's Bauble, but that's fine. It's an energy refractor from our opponents. Another card very good with the Thraxidemon. I'm going to discard this Chain Dancer. And draw a card. Cliff Stomper. Ooh, with 4 mountains in hand? Cliff Stomper could be talking a big game very soon. A Blast Runner of their own, so they are also on red-black. They just haven't drawn any red sources. Another Blast Runner, alright. Anyways, they started blasting. That is quite threatening with a Thraxidemon on board. They don't have any other way to sacrifice something that we see currently. They're almost definitely running Sibling Rivalry in the deck if they are in red-black, which we know they are now. So I think I actually want to Obliterating Bolt this Thraxidemon and then drop down a Cliff Stomper. Get a Scrapwork Mud attack in though. See if we can kill one of the Blast Runners. We cannot. There is their mountain. And a Mishra claimed by Gix. As far as I remember, this one's not that bad either. Well, this one's stronger than the Mishra we could have drafted. They drain life every time they're attacking. Yeah, that's actually really obnoxious. That's almost impossible to race. Yeah, we need to kill that. Kill that badly. I guess we're on research desk then. So every time they attack, they're going to drain 3 life from us and gain 3 life if they attack with 3 things. Swamp, 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 swamp. Ghost Spear's fine, Mountain's also fine. And Mountain, I get to play a Rock Hunter this turn. Makes Cliff Stomper bigger as well. Well, if they can't sacrifice something, Mishra can't win this single-handedly, because I can trade into both their Blast Runners. Could also go for the double walk on Mishra. Oh, that is a sack out. That's so bad for us. 15 here. We did not crack back that hard at all. Take 9. I'd go to 4. If they attack me with 4 things, I just die. I think I need to chump. So if they play another creature here, they just attack with 4 creatures next turn and we're dead. Pretty glad I chumped, but unfortunate. The mana is going to kill us in 2 of our 3 losses, which is fair enough. I ran a really low amount of swamps, but if we could have disfigured Fauna Shaman in that other game, we could have won, and if we had access to disfigure this game, that would also slow them down enough to win. But 2 of the 3 losses to our greedy mana base, which does make sense. It's in the name of the deck. Unfortunate. Yeah, wow. We're really not going to get there. We're literally halfway through the deck. Looking for our 4 black sources. Let's go... is there any way to not die here? This thing attacks as we got 6 to 4 power in the sky. No, we can't not die. Literally cannot not die. Unless I present lethal here. 5, 6, 7, 8, which is impossible. 9, 10, 11. Yeah, it just has to be just straight up swamp. Yikes. Yep, that's more than halfway through the deck. Didn't draw any of the 4. Killed by the mana. And also Mishra. Yep, this attacks for 4 damage in the sky, plus Mishra's ability, 5 in the sky. They just need to attack with any 2 creatures, and they don't even need to connect to kill us. Yeah, this card is scary. Also gained them like 1,000 life. I think they would be dead at this point if it wasn't gaining life. And there it is, 6 and 3 for today's draft. Unfortunate way to end it. Overall, I think this deck was really good. I think it was well drafted, and we ended up in the most open strategy in the draft pod, which was super sweet. We got to play Mechanized Warfare, which was a lot of fun. The one thing that I would change based on 2 of our 3 losses would be probably adding 1 or 2 more swamps into here. Maybe going for 3 swamps plus Evolving Wilds. Keeping that Elsewhere Flask. And another way to get a black source. But yeah, having that Disfigure just staring at us in 2 of those losses was brutal. Yeah, other than that, like the deck a lot. The Chain Dancer's really, really bad. I think maybe I should have changed the deck a little bit mid-draft. Thrown in like another Forge Chanter and maybe the Maze Mind Dome or something over these Chain Dancers. Because I was very much not a fan. Just again, as I said before, just really never had the mana to just dirtle around with activated abilities like that. So they're just like 4 mana 2/4s. Just really slow at the top end of the curve. But I guess since we didn't have the mana to dirtle around with abilities, Maze Mind Tome would also be bad, so just another Bitter Reunion or something over that. Another card works with a Triple Blast Runner. Actually would have probably been pretty sweet. Something like this would have been better than the Double Chain Dancer version. Get another Obliterating, or another Bitter Reunion and another Dwarven Forge Chanter into the deck. So some minor errors in deck building definitely led to a couple of those losses that may have been victories if we hit our black source. So very close. Could have been a 7-win run with a little bit better mana distribution and deck building, or a little bit better draws during gameplay. But still got very close, and the deck was super sweet. A 6 and 3 run. Nothing to scoff at. We'll take it. Grab these prizes and run away. That is going to end today's video. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more like it, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to let the YouTube algorithm know to send you some more of these videos in your recommended feeds. And we've got great stuff on the horizon. We've got the Brothers War qualifier playing event this Friday. And if I do manage to win in that, we'll be playing in the qualifier weekend this weekend. All of that is going to be more Brothers War Limited, some Brothers War Sealed. So that's some cool stuff. And Arena Cube is coming back December 13th. And we'll be playing a lot of that. Cube is always a very fun time, and I'm excited for its return. Other than that, I'll be playing all the new limited formats as they come out, as I always do. But, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.